Hi, Sophie Glenn here, and today we're going to be talking about welding PPE. So this is a third part of the PPE series, or personal protective equipment, and today we're going to be talking specifically about welding equipment. So most of the rules when it comes to personal protective equipment apply to the welding atmosphere also. So if you've watched the previous videos, I've talked about wearing long pants and long sleeves, so that's particularly true in the case of welding. With welding in particular, you're dealing with very bright arcs, especially if you're doing electric arc welding, and the arcs are actually so bright that it can actually cause a sunburn. So we need to make sure that we're wearing at the very least long sleeves and long pants. Because we're dealing with metal also, and that could potentially be very hot metal, even molten metal, leather boots are preferred and definitely encouraged. If you have steel toe boots, that's even better, because if you're dealing with heavy materials like steel, like really heavy gauge steel, then having a steel toe boot is really appropriate for that as well. And they tend to last a little bit longer too than just your cotton sneakers or what have you. Speaking of cotton, you always want to make sure to have cotton attire, because any sort of synthetic fabrics, if they get burnt, they can shrink, and that could potentially be very dangerous depending on what you're working on. So cotton fibers are preferred. So with that, I'll get started with my first piece of attire here, which is my welding jacket. So this is a sort of cotton canvas type of welding jacket. And what's nice about it is it's got a nice little button closure, but it also goes all the way up to my neck, so I can shut this off as well. So when I have a welding helmet on, which is one of these guys here, it totally protects all of my exposed skin, so I don't have to get any kind of what's called arc burn or flash burn. So with that, we also want to wear particular gloves. So I have two types here. This first type is just a nice thin leather glove, which is really great for TIG welding or for oxyacetylene welding, so dealing with arcs that aren't all that sparky, I should say. So we get into MIG welding, which I talk about in other videos. MIG welding tends to have a lot of sparks and molten metal that flies kind of everywhere, so you kind of need to wear a little bit heavier gauge materials. But these leather gloves are great. Mine have a hole in them, so I have to get a new pair. But these have lasted me a pretty long time, and they're great for TIG welding, so something that has a little bit more of a concentrated arc that doesn't go all over the place like MIG welding does. So these are great for that. We also have a pair of thicker sort of hide gloves here, so a leather glove. And these are great for MIG welding. Because again, you have sparks that fly everywhere. So these are much thicker, but they do protect you a lot more easily, and they're a little bit more insulated, so they protect you a lot more from that exposed heat and definitely from that exposed arc. And as you can see, my sleeves are kind of short here, but the gloves are long enough where they kind of go over my sleeve, and I'm totally protected, at least from the neck down. All right. So again, these are great for MIG weld, and they're also great for casting metal. So if you're doing bronze casting or things like that, you'll typically want to wear leather gear specifically, because you are dealing with a much higher temperature, especially in a much larger setting. So with that too, you can have other kinds of equipment. So this is just an apron here. So just a regular old leather apron. So if I'm not wearing a jacket or something, I can wear this over whatever clothes that I'm wearing, and that should protect me, at least for most practices. You can also get jackets like this in a leather variety, and you can also get chaps and also shin guards and foot guards. So if you're not wearing the right sneaker, you can wear the shin guards, and they usually cover your entire foot and also part of your shin. So that's the basic attire that we want to have in the welding shop. A couple other differences that we have with the welding shop are eye protection. So I'll start out with these types of glasses. So you'll see that these look like regular safety glasses, but they have a darker green tint to them. These are mine right here. And these are a shade 5 welding glasses. So these are made specifically for oxyacetylene welding. So shade 5 is the lightest shade you can wear that still protect your eyes, but also from the arc from the oxyacetylene welding, but still light enough for you to be able to see out of them. Whereas opposed to these, this is a shade 11 lens here, and you can't actually see through it until you start welding. So these are the lightest shade you can wear to still see through them, but also protect your eyes from the oxyacetylene arc. So again, these are only specifically for oxyacetylene and plasma cutting, because the arc is relatively or not as bright as it is on MIG welding or TIG welding. So they fit just like regular old safety glasses, and mine look pretty cool, so you might as well look cool while you're doing this. So these are really nice for, again, oxyacetylene and plasma cutting. All right, and they look just like regular old safety glasses. These also have side shields on them, so I can grind in these too, which is kind of nice. So they act just like regular safety glasses, so I don't have to switch between these or my regular safety glasses that look exactly like this, just have clear lenses. So that's that. And finally, we have welding helmets here. So I have two different styles. This is just kind of your standard welding helmet, and this will, cost-wise, it's probably about anywhere from 20 to 40 bucks. And I've had this for like about 10 years now. So I've gotten this when I first started welding, and it's been really helpful for me ever since. So like I said before, this has a shade 11 lens on it. So I can't actually see through this if I'm just talking to you in person. But once I start welding, especially with MIG welding or TIG welding, where the arc is a lot brighter, I'll be able to see that, that arc and still keep my eyes protected. So you don't want to just walk around with this on an everyday basis, but this is really appropriate for not only keeping your eyes covered, but keeping your entire face covered. Because again, the arc is so bright that it could actually cause a sunburn. So we want to make sure that everything is covered. So if I were to wear this, it's got a little thing that I can adjust it. It fits right over my bun, luckily. Right, and I can leave this up when I'm not welding, then I get myself set up in a MIG welding stance, and I can just drop this down, and then I'm ready to go. All right. So this is a great helmet to start out on when you're welding, because you get used to that movement, and it also helps you to develop that muscle memory when you're welding. So if you're MIG welding, for example, you're kind of have one arm down here, and you're using the MIG gun. This won't make any sense without the equipment in my hands, but if I'm just sort of stimulating it with my hands, I can do this, drop my helmet down, and then I'm ready to go, right? So it's doing this is part of that training to develop that muscle memory when you're welding. When you start to get really good at welding, then you can move on to the auto darkening helmet. These are really nice. This is by Speed Glass, which is owned by 3M. So they make all sorts of safety equipment, as you guys probably know. And this is a nice helmet because it darkens as soon as it detects an arc. So I could actually see through this and talk to you while I'm wearing this helmet, but as soon as I start welding with it, it'll go automatically to the right shade. And the shade levels here go from 5 to 13, so I have a variance of different shades. So I can do oxyacetylene welding with this and set this to a shade 5, or I can do TIG or MIG welding with this and set it to a shade 11 or even up to shade 13. So this is a really great helmet. And it also has these nice little this particular model has these little side shields on them, so I can get nice little peripheral vision going. So I tend to get spooked if people walk up behind me and I'm wearing this, so I can sort of see out the side. So here I can do the same thing. So I can lift this up and keep it up if I'm talking or demonstrating, and then I can drop it back down pretty easily, just like that. All right. This, cost-wise, is a little bit pricier, but if you take good care of them, they'll last you a very long time. The only thing you have to know with this one, because it's battery powered, so you will have to change out the batteries periodically, which obviously with this one you don't. So if you're really serious about welding, I would definitely start out with this one, and eventually if you're getting really good at it and wanting to move up, then move up to something like this. So that's welding PPE.